The night was unnervingly quiet. The full moon hung high in the sky, casting an eerie glow, but the silence in the house was unnatural. It felt like the world outside had vanished, leaving only a suffocating stillness behind. Inside, the house was too quiet, too empty. I felt a weight pressing down on my chest, something that had been gnawing at me ever since I buried my brother, James. It had been 2 weeks since the funeral. The day itself was a blur of grief, the kind of sorrow that twists and distorts your sense of time. I couldn't recall much of it, only the cold earth, the sound of the dirt hitting the coffin, the feeling of my heart sinking deeper into an endless abyss. James had always been my rock. Losing him in such a sudden, tragic way felt like I had lost part of myself. The pain was sharp, unbearable, and for days I walked around in a daze, unsure how to navigate this new world without him. But tonight was different. As I walked through the door, the house felt heavier. The air was thick, charged with something I couldn't quite identify. It was warm, but suffocatingly so, as though the walls were closing in. My mind raced, trying to rationalize the feeling, but nothing made sense. I had just come home from work, but something was off. The faintest chill ran down my spine as I passed through the entryway. The silence felt like a trap. I noticed it then. The door to the living room, which I was certain I had closed earlier, was ajar. Not just slightly, completely open. My stomach twisted as I approached. I hesitated, my hand hovering above the door frame. I could feel a strange pull, a compulsion to step forward, but I couldn't explain why. It was as if something inside me was screaming at me to stay away, but my feet moved forward regardless. The moment I entered the living room, my breath caught in my throat. There, lying on the couch in the dim light, was James. He looked like he was sleeping. The way his body was positioned, his arms sprawled across the cushions, his legs crossed loosely, looked eerily familiar. I took a step forward, my heart pounding in my chest. I told myself it was just my grief playing tricks on me, that the shock of his death was too much to bear, but deep down I knew something wasn't right. His clothes were torn as if he had been through something violent, and his face was pale, too pale. His hair was matted, dirty, and his eyes were closed. For a moment I thought maybe I was seeing things, maybe this was some twisted dream, some horrible nightmare. But the reality was undeniable. I had buried him. I had seen his lifeless body lowered into the ground with my own eyes. There was no coming back from that. I took another step, my feet moving mechanically as if pulled by some unseen force. I reached out, my hand trembling as I touched his shoulder. The moment my fingers made contact, a cold shiver ran through me, sharper than anything I had ever felt before. He felt real, but at the same time he didn't. James? My voice cracked as I whispered his name. No answer. No movement. I stepped closer, my breath shallow. I leaned in to check his pulse, my fingers brushing the side of his neck. His skin was cold, too cold, and I felt a wave of nausea hit me. I quickly pulled away, my heart racing in my chest. Suddenly, his eyes snapped open. I staggered back, my chest tightening with panic. His gaze was fixed on me, but they weren't his eyes. They weren't the eyes I had known all my life. His pupils were unnaturally wide, the irises an unsettling shade of gray like mist. They didn't shine with recognition. They didn't hold the warmth I had always seen in them. Instead, they were cold, lifeless, and detached. For a moment, I froze, unable to move, my mind reeling with confusion. But then his lips parted and he spoke. "You shouldn't have buried me." The words were flat, void of any emotion, and they sent a chill down my spine. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But my legs wouldn't move. I just stood there, rooted to the spot, my eyes locked with his. "James?" I whispered again, my voice barely audible. "Is it really you?" He didn't respond, just stared at me, his expression unreadable. Then, without warning, he slowly sat up. The movement was unnatural, stiff, like a puppet being manipulated by invisible strings. "You shouldn't have done it," he repeated, his voice carrying an edge of something I couldn't quite place. It was like he was repeating someone else's words, not his own. I stumbled backward, my head spinning. This wasn't possible. It couldn't be happening. My brother was dead. This wasn't him. Whatever this was, it wasn't him. He tilted his head slightly, his eyes never leaving mine, studying me like a predator with its prey. There was something wrong in the air, something I couldn't understand, but the feeling of dread in the pit of my stomach grew stronger by the second. "James?" I tried to say, but the words stuck in my throat. My pulse raced and my thoughts collided in a storm of disbelief. He slowly stood up, his movements jerky, almost mechanical. A low chuckle escaped his lips, and it sent a wave of nausea through me. "You shouldn't have buried me. I've been waiting for you." I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. As I stood there, frozen in place, staring at James, my brother or whatever this was, I could feel the blood pounding in my ears. My body was in shock, but my mind was in overdrive, racing to make sense of what was happening. James' face was blank, his expression empty and cold. The smile he had once shared so freely with me, the warmth in his eyes that I had known all my life, it was gone. There was no trace of the brother I had loved. Instead, there was only something wrong. His gaze pierced into me as if studying me, analyzing me like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve. "You shouldn't have buried me," he repeated, his voice low and unsettling. I didn't," I whispered, my voice trembling. "You died. I saw it. You were gone." His head tilted slightly and he gave that eerie, empty smile again. "You can't bury what was never meant to stay buried." My stomach churned as his words cut through me like a blade. I felt a rush of cold air even though the room was warm. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end as I tried to process what he was saying. Was this a joke? Some sick, twisted joke? But it didn't feel like one. Felt real. Too real. "James, what are you talking about?" I asked, my voice breaking. "What is this? Why are you here?" He didn't answer. Instead, he began to walk toward me, his steps slow, deliberate, as if he had all the time in the world. I wanted to move, to step back, but my feet felt like they were glued to the floor. The weight of the moment pressed down on me, making it harder to breathe. He was close now, so close that I could feel the coldness emanating from his body. "You buried me," he said, his voice suddenly sharp, almost angry. "You thought you could just move on, forget me, forget us. But I'm not gone. I'm still here. And now, you will pay the price for what you've done." His words sent a chill through me, and for the first time, I felt the real fear that had been gnawing at me from the moment I saw him. This wasn't my brother. This wasn't James. It was something else. Something dark. I stumbled back, my heart racing as panic set in. "No, please," I gasped. "You can't be him. You can't be my brother. You're not real. You're just a trick, some nightmare." James stood still for a moment, just staring at me. His eyes, those eyes were still cold, lifeless. There was no flicker of recognition, no hint of the brother I once knew. Just emptiness. And then, slowly, almost deliberately, he smiled again. "You still don't understand, do you?" he said softly. "I'm not the one who's not real. You are. You're the one who's living in a lie." I shook my head, trying to make sense of his words, but nothing made sense. How could this be happening? How could he be standing there, in front of me, after I had seen him buried in the ground? Suddenly, there was a sharp knock on the door. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Who was it? Who could possibly be here at a time like this? My hands shook as I turned toward the door, my mind still reeling from the confrontation. I couldn't take my eyes off James, though. He was still there, still smiling, watching me with those hollow eyes. He wasn't moving, but I could feel his presence pressing in on me, suffocating me. Another knock, louder this time. "Hello?" A voice called from the other side of the door. "Is anyone there?" I could hardly breathe. The voice, it sounded like a neighbor or maybe a friend from work. But I couldn't remember who it was, couldn't focus. I was too consumed by the impossible reality in front of me. James' smile faded, and his eyes flickered toward the door for a brief moment, as if contemplating something. Then, without a word, he turned and walked toward the window, slowly, his movements stiff and unnatural. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. I had to see if anyone could help me. I needed to know if there was anyone left who could see through this nightmare. With trembling hands, I reached for the door handle. As I touched it, I felt the same coldness that had surrounded James. It was like the air itself had turned to ice, a creeping frost that settled into my bones. I pulled the door open. Standing there, on the other side, was a figure I didn't recognize. A tall man with dark, sharp features and an air of urgency around him. He looked concerned, his eyes scanning the room behind me as if he was searching for something. Someone. "Is everything okay?" he asked, his voice filled with worry. I saw a light on and thought I heard someone. I glanced back into the room. James was gone. There was no sign of him. No trace of the chilling presence that had been there just moments before. I turned back to the man, my breath still shallow, my heart still racing. I don't know," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Something's wrong. Something's happening." The man's expression softened. You look like you need help. Is there anyone else here with you? Maybe I can. Before he could finish, I felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of dread. The room around me seemed to grow darker, the air heavier. I could see the shadows lengthening, twisting as if they were alive. I looked around frantically, but there was no sign of James. Just the suffocating silence and the thick, oppressive darkness that had begun to settle into the house. Something was changing, something was wrong, and I knew deep down that this was just the beginning. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing my mind. Everything felt wrong. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw James, my brother, staring back at me with those lifeless, hollow eyes. And every time I looked around, I felt like something was watching me, waiting for me to make the wrong move. The man who had knocked on my door, he was gone now, leaving me standing there, utterly confused and terrified. But something in the pit of my stomach told me that this was no coincidence. It couldn't be. There was something more to all of this, something deeper and darker than I could even begin to understand. I needed answers. But where could I find them? Who could help me? The first person who came to mind was Claire, an old friend of James who had always been close to the family. She was one of the few people who might understand the strange, eerie feeling that had settled over the house. I had to call her. I had to tell her what was happening. I picked up my phone, my hands shaking, and dialed her number. The phone rang twice before she picked up. Hello? Claire's voice was groggy as if she had been sleeping. Claire, it's me. There's something wrong, I said, my words coming out in a rush. James, he's back. There was a pause on the other end of the line. What do you mean, back? She asked, her voice cautious. I don't know how to explain it, I said, my throat tight with fear. I saw him, he was here. But it wasn't him, Claire. It couldn't have been. He looked like James, but his eyes were wrong and his voice, it was hollow. He said things that didn't make sense. He said I shouldn't have buried him. I could hear her breathing heavily, the phone crackling as she processed my words. Where are you right now? I'm at the house, I said. But I don't know what to do. He's still here, I can feel it. It's like something's watching me. Don't move, Claire said, her voice suddenly sharp. I'm coming over. We'll figure this out together. I hung up, pacing the room, my mind spinning. Every time I thought about James, about what had happened, my head started to ache. I had to get answers. I had to know what was happening to my brother. And more importantly, what had happened to me. Claire arrived about an hour later, her face pale, her eyes filled with concern. She had always been the logical one, the person who could calm me down when I was spiraling out of control. But now, seeing her face, I could tell she was just as terrified as I was. I let her in and we both sat down in the living room. The silence between us was deafening. I couldn't bring myself to say anything, couldn't form the words to explain what I had seen. Claire seemed to understand. She stood up and began pacing the room, her brow furrowed in thought. We need to figure out what's happening, she said finally, her voice tight with determination. There has to be some explanation. Maybe there's something in the house, something connected to the way James died. I nodded, the idea taking root in my mind. James had died under mysterious circumstances. An accident, they had said, but there had always been something off about it. Something I couldn't quite place. Maybe it wasn't an accident at all. I remember something from the night he died, I said slowly. There was a shadow. Just before the crash. It was like someone or something was watching us. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now I wonder. Claire stopped pacing and turned to face me. What do you mean, a shadow? It was just for a split second, I explained, but it felt wrong. Like it was something out of place, something not supposed to be there. We were both silent for a long time, the weight of what I had just said hanging in the air. Do you still have his personal belongings? Claire asked after a while. Anything from his room? Something that might give us a clue? I nodded. I have his things in his room, but I don't know if that will help. She stood up, a fire igniting in her eyes. We have to try. We can't just sit here and wait for whatever this is to happen again. We need to investigate to find out what's really going on. I agreed, but I couldn't help feeling a growing sense of dread. What if we weren't just dealing with something supernatural? What if it was something worse, something that I couldn't stop, something that had already taken root in my life? We made our way upstairs to James' old room. The door creaked as I opened it and I was hit with a wave of memories. His room was still the same as it had been when he left. Old posters hung on the walls, his bed was neatly made, and his desk was cluttered with books and papers. But everything felt off. The air in the room was thick, like it had been trapped there, waiting for something. I walked over to his desk and picked up a small box. It was a keepsake box, something James had kept since childhood. It was locked, but I knew the key was hidden in the drawer. When I opened it, I found a collection of old letters and photographs. Some I recognized, others I didn't. I sifted through them until one caught my eye. It was a letter, handwritten in James' familiar handwriting. But as I read it, my heart skipped a beat. The letter was addressed to me. I've been seeing things. Strange things. I think I know what's coming. It's not just in my head, I know it. It's coming for me. And it's coming for you too. Don't ignore it. You need to leave while you still can. I dropped the letter, my hands shaking. Claire was watching me, her face pale. What is it? She asked softly. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was too busy staring at the letter, my mind racing with fear and confusion. This letter, this warning, had been written long before James died. And somehow he had known. After Claire and I had read the letter, the room grew colder. The air felt thick with the weight of unspoken thoughts, with a sense that we were no longer in control of the situation. The letter was the first real clue we had, an eerie warning written by James himself before his death. But what did it mean? What had he been seeing and how had he known? I turned to Claire, my thoughts racing. This letter, it says he knew something was coming. But what? What was he talking about? Claire didn't answer immediately. She was standing near the window, her eyes scanning the street below, lost in thought. Maybe he was trying to warn you. Maybe he knew this wasn't just some accident. Maybe he knew something was coming for him, and for you. I shook my head. But I don't understand. He died in a car accident. It was a random thing. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, she agreed, turning to face me. But there's more to this than we're seeing. We need to figure out what exactly James was involved in. What was he investigating? Who was he talking to? What did he know? I nodded, but I felt a knot in my stomach. The more we dug into this, the more I felt like we were opening doors to something far worse than I could ever imagine. James' death had been a tragedy, yes, but there was something else, something darker that had followed him. And now, whatever that was following me. We need to go back to the crash site, Claire suggested. Maybe there's something there we missed. Maybe something that can explain why James wrote this letter. If he was involved in something, it could have left a trace. It didn't take long for me to agree. I needed to go back. I needed to understand what happened that night. My feet moved before I could think, and before I knew it, Claire and I were on our way out the door, driving through the dark, silent streets toward the site where my brother had died. The further we drove from town, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The streetlights grew sparse, and the darkness seemed to swallow the road in front of us. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my mind racing with all the possibilities of what we might find. But deep down, I knew it wasn't going to be an ordinary investigation. It was going to reveal something far worse. When we arrived at the crash site, I could barely recognize the place. The road looked quiet, ordinary even. But there was something unsettling about it. The remnants of the crash had long been cleared away, but the smell of burned rubber and gasoline still lingered faintly in the air. We parked the car by the side of the road and I got out, my feet crunching the gravel beneath me. I looked around, my eyes scanning the trees, the open field next to the road. There was no sign of anything unusual, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was there, something watching. This is it, Claire said softly, standing beside me. This is where it happened. Are you sure you want to go through with this? I nodded, swallowing hard. I have to know. I have to understand what happened to James. We walked around the area, trying to make sense of the scene. The silence was almost deafening. There was no wind, no rustling of leaves, just the oppressive quiet. It felt like the world had stopped turning. I knelt down by the edge of the road, trying to imagine what had happened that night. James had been driving home, and I had been expecting him. I had been waiting for him to come back, but he never did. The next thing I knew, I had been called to the hospital, where I was told that my brother had died in a car accident. But as I looked at the ground now, something didn't feel right. The way the grass grew here seemed wrong. The earth felt too soft, too disturbed. I reached down, brushing the dirt with my fingers. Something hard scraped against my hand. Startled, I pulled my hand back and looked at what I had found, a small, tarnished metal object. It was no bigger than a coin, but it was covered in strange markings, symbols that I didn't recognize. My stomach churned as I held it in my palm. What was this? Why was it here? Claire, look at this, I called to her. She walked over and took the object from my hand. Her face paled as she examined it, running her fingers over the symbols. What is this? It doesn't look like anything I've seen before. I don't know, I said, shaking my head, but it feels wrong. Like it doesn't belong here. Claire's expression hardened as she stood up. We need to take this to someone who can look at it. Someone who knows about this kind of stuff. This could be the clue we need. I nodded in agreement. It was the only lead we had, and it was far from ordinary. It was the only thing that felt like it didn't belong in this world, and I was starting to realize that nothing about this was going to make sense. I had no idea who, or what, was behind all of this, but I knew we were only scratching the surface. The drive back from the crash site was silent. Claire and I exchanged few words, both of us lost in thought. The metal object we'd found weighed heavily in my pocket, as if it were alive, as if it carried a secret that it wasn't ready to reveal. It felt like the kind of thing you only found when you were in deep trouble, when you were already too far down a path to turn back. When we arrived at my house, Claire and I went straight to the kitchen, where I spread out the contents of James' old box. Among the letters and photographs, I had found a few more strange items. Cryptic notes, drawings, and symbols that didn't belong to any language I knew. James had been trying to communicate something, but what? Claire carefully examined the metal object again, her brow furrowed in concentration. She handed it back to me with a look of concern. This doesn't look like anything I've seen before. We need to find someone who can decipher this. I know, I said, my voice tight. But who can help us? We're already in too deep, Claire. Maybe, she replied slowly, someone who specializes in the occult. Someone who deals with the unknown. This is far beyond what I can understand. And it's obvious James was involved in something. He knew something was coming for him, and now it's coming for you too. I was silent for a moment, my thoughts swirling. Claire was right, of course. We were in too deep. But if we didn't uncover the truth soon, I feared it might be too late for both of us. There was only one person I could think of, someone I had hoped I'd never need to call again. A former colleague of mine, Dr. Malcolm Porter, a professor of anthropology who had a reputation for studying ancient cultures, the occult, and the paranormal. We had worked together on a few minor projects in the past, but he had always been the kind of person who dealt with things most people would prefer to ignore. I found his number and called him. The phone rang for what felt like an eternity before he answered. Hello. His voice was groggy, like I had just woken him up. Dr. Porter, it's me, Ethan. I need your help, I said quickly, my voice tinged with desperation. It's about something I found. It's connected to my brother's death. There was a long pause on the other end of the line before he responded, his tone suddenly more alert. What is it, Ethan? What have you found? I don't know how to explain it, I said, but it's something ancient. It's a metal object, covered in symbols I don't recognize. It's connected to my brother, somehow. I need to know what it means. Dr. Porter was silent for a moment, processing my words. Where are you? I'll come over. It didn't take long for him to arrive. Dr. Porter was in his mid-50s, with graying hair and a sharp, calculating gaze that made you feel like he could see through your every thought. He had a reputation for knowing more than anyone about obscure subjects, and I knew if anyone could help us, it was him. I showed him the object, and immediately, his expression darkened. This is dangerous, he said quietly, examining the metal object with a careful, almost reverent touch. Where did you find this? At the crash site, I replied. It was buried in the ground near where James died. Dr. Porter's eyes widened, and I could tell he was shaken by something he saw. This is older than anything I've ever studied. This symbol here, it's tied to an ancient order, one that believed in resurrection and bringing the dead back. But not in the way you'd expect. They believed in using the living as vessels to contain the souls of the dead. And from what I can gather, this is a ritual object, a key. A key to what? Claire asked, her voice laced with fear. A key to control what comes back. The dead, in their belief system, are not gone. They can be brought back, but only if the right conditions are met. And once they return, they are no longer the same. They are vessels. They are empty. I felt my stomach drop as Dr. Porter's words sank in. It was like my worst nightmare was slowly unfolding before my eyes. My brother, he wasn't just dead. He had been brought back. And whatever he had become, it was not the brother I had known. Dr. Porter continued, his voice low and urgent. The ritual is not something that should be meddled with. If this order was involved in your brother's death, if they had anything to do with this, then the consequences could be catastrophic. This is not something you can just undo. You can't reverse it. Not easily. But what can we do? Claire asked, her voice trembling. Dr. Porter paused, staring at the object for a moment, then looked up at us. There's a place, a ruin deep in the forest. It's known to be one of the last sites of this ancient order. If the ritual was performed there, then we might be able to find answers. But be warned, it's dangerous. There's no telling what we'll encounter there. I exchanged a glance with Claire. We had no choice. We had to go. If there was any chance of stopping whatever had happened to James, or whatever had happened to me, this was the only lead we had. The forest was dark, its trees stretching high above us, blocking out the moonlight. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and every step we took seemed to be swallowed by the oppressive silence. It felt as though the world had forgotten this place, forgotten the horrors that once lived here and perhaps still did. Claire and I walked in silence, the weight of Dr. Porter's words hanging heavy between us. We had driven for miles to get here, to the edge of the forest where the ruins of the ancient order lay hidden, abandoned for centuries. But now, as we stood on the precipice of the unknown, I could feel the fear creeping back in, gnawing at my resolve. We had no idea what awaited us inside those ruins, but we knew one thing. Whatever had happened to James, whatever he had become, was connected to this place. This was where the ritual had been performed, and the truth that lay within these ruins was the only way to stop it. "I don't like this," Claire whispered, her voice barely audible as we made our way through the thick underbrush. "It feels wrong, Ethan. Everything about this place feels wrong." I nodded, my hand instinctively reaching for the object we had found at the crash site. It was now wrapped in cloth, but I could feel the weight of it in my pocket, a constant reminder that we were too deep in this mess to turn back. We had to press forward. There was no other choice. After what seemed like an eternity of walking, we finally reached the clearing. There, partially hidden by overgrown vines and the thick canopy of trees, stood the ruins. Broken stone columns and shattered statues lay scattered across the ground, their once majestic forms now worn down by time and neglect. The air around the ruins was still, almost suffocating, and I could feel a sense of dread filling the space. "This is it," Dr. Porter said, his voice solemn as he looked around. "This is where it all began." I looked at him, my heart racing. "What exactly happened here, Dr. Porter? What kind of rituals did they perform?" He hesitated, looking at the ruins with an unreadable expression. "It's not just a ritual. It's a bond. A bond between the living and the dead. They believed that death wasn't the end, that it was merely a transition. They could bring back those who had passed, but they would not return as they were. They would be empty vessels, vessels that could be controlled. The dead could be made to serve the living, and they would do so willingly." I shuddered at his words. The idea that James, my brother, could be one of these vessels. It was almost too much to bear. But I knew I had to keep going. The truth was here, in these ruins, and I had to find it. "Let's go inside," Claire said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "We can't stand here all night." We stepped cautiously into the ruins, the ground beneath our feet crunching as we moved. The stone walls were covered in faded carvings, their meanings lost to time. But one thing was clear. They depicted scenes of ritual, of death and resurrection. The images seemed to move, to shift as we passed by, as though they were alive, watching us. The deeper we went into the ruins, the darker it became. The air grew colder, and the silence grew thicker, as if something was watching us from the shadows. We reached what looked like the center of the ruin, where a large stone altar stood. It was covered in strange markings, symbols that looked eerily similar to those on the metal object we had found. "This is it," Dr. Porter said quietly. "This is where the ritual was performed. This is where they brought the dead back." I felt my heart race as I approached the altar. The stone was cold to the touch, and the symbols seemed to glow faintly, as though alive with some ancient power. It felt as though the very air around the altar was charged with energy, an energy I couldn't explain. "I don't like this," Claire whispered again, her voice trembling. "Neither do I admitted. "But we have to understand what happened here. We have to find out what James was involved in. This altar, this is where everything went wrong." Dr. Porter stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the altar. "The ritual must have been performed here, and it worked. But I don't understand why. Why would James have been involved? Why would he?" Suddenly, there was a loud noise from behind us, a rustling of leaves, and I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. Something was out there, something moving, something close. "Did you hear that?" I whispered urgently to Claire. She nodded, her face pale. "I heard it. What is it?" Before I could respond, there was another noise, a deep, guttural growl like something that wasn't human. My breath caught in my throat as I looked around frantically. We were surrounded by the ruins, by the shadows, and I couldn't see anything. "Get behind me," Dr. Porter said, his voice low and steady. "Stay close." But it was too late. A figure emerged from the shadows, moving quickly, its form indistinct in the dim light. It was tall, gaunt, and its eyes, those hollow, empty eyes, stared directly at me. It moved with unnatural speed, and I could feel its presence, feel its eyes boring into me as if it was hunting me. Without warning, the creature lunged. The creature lunged at us, its movements fast and violent, like something straight out of a nightmare. I barely had time to react before it was on top of us, its cold, hollow eyes locked onto mine. I could feel its breath, cold and foul, on my face, its presence overwhelming, suffocating. It was like a living shadow, an entity that existed outside the boundaries of our understanding. I stumbled backward, barely dodging its grasp. It was too fast, too strong. The creature's fingers, long and clawed, scraped across my arm, leaving a trail of burning cold in their wake. My heart pounded in my chest as I fought to regain my balance. "Run!" Claire shouted, her voice full of terror. "Ethan, we need to get out of here." I didn't need to be told twice. I turned, grabbing Claire's hand, and we bolted toward the entrance of the ruins, our feet pounding the ground as we raced to escape. The sound of the creature's growls echoed in the air, its footsteps heavy behind us. We didn't look back. As we neared the clearing, I could feel the creature's presence closing in on us. It was too fast, too relentless. I could hear it getting closer with every passing second, its growls growing louder. My breath was ragged, my body aching with the effort of running, but I couldn't stop. We couldn't stop. We reached the edge of the forest, but the creature wasn't far behind. It was almost upon us when I heard a familiar voice, a voice I had been dreading to hear. "Get down?" Dr. Porter shouted. I instinctively dropped to the ground, pulling Claire down with me. A moment later, there was a blinding flash of light, followed by a deafening roar. The ground shook beneath us, and I felt an invisible force slam into my chest. I gasped for air, my mind spinning. When I opened my eyes, the creature was gone. Dr. Porter stood in front of us, his eyes wide with fear. In his hand, he held an ancient-looking staff, its tip glowing with a faint, eerie light. The creature had vanished as if it had never been there, but the air was still thick with an oppressive energy. What just happened?" Claire gasped, her voice shaky with fear. Dr. Porter lowered the staff, his face grim. "That was one of them. One of the beings that the ancient order used in their rituals. They're not just undead, they're something worse. They're vessels for the dead, but they also have a mind of their own. They're bound to the ritual, but they're also free in a way. And now they're hunting you." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Me? Why me? What does this have to do with me?" Dr. Porter turned to face me, his expression dark. "It's because of the object. The key. It's what they need to open the gateway between the living and the dead. It's why they're coming after you. Your brother, James, he was involved in this. He's the key. And now they want him back." I shook my head, trying to make sense of everything. "What do you mean, they want him back?" "He's dead. He's gone." Dr. Porter's eyes softened for a moment, but then he stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder. "James isn't truly dead, Ethan. He's been brought back. But he's not the same. He's one of them now, a vessel for the dead. And the ritual, it's far from over. If they complete it, if they bring all the pieces together, they can bring more of the dead back. And they will come after you. They'll come after anyone connected to the ritual." I felt my heart sink. "So what do we do? How do we stop it?" "We need to destroy the altar," Dr. Porter said. "The altar is the focal point of the ritual. It's where the gateway was opened. If we can destroy it, we can stop the ritual. But it's not going to be easy. There's something protecting it. Something that won't let us get close." I looked at Claire, who nodded, her face determined. We had no choice. We had to stop this. We couldn't let whatever was happening continue. If we didn't act now, it could be the end of everything. Dr. Porter led us back into the ruins, the air around us heavy with the threat of danger. The ground beneath our feet seemed to tremble, and the shadows in the corners of the ruins seemed to shift as though they were alive. I could feel the presence of the creature, still lurking somewhere in the dark, waiting for the right moment to strike. We reached the altar again, and I could see the symbols glowing faintly as if they were alive, pulsing with energy. The altar seemed to be pulling us in, drawing us closer like a magnet. But I resisted, holding my ground. "We need to destroy it," Dr. Porter said again. "We need to destroy the source of the ritual." He raised his staff high, and with a chant I couldn't understand, he struck the altar with the tip. The stone cracked, and a loud, bone-shaking sound filled the air. The symbols flared brightly, and the ground beneath us shook violently. Then there was silence. For a moment, everything stood still. The air was heavy with anticipation, and I could feel my heart racing in my chest. Had we done it? Had we stopped the ritual? But then the ground beneath us cracked open. A dark, swirling vortex began to form in the center of the altar. The very fabric of reality seemed to tear apart, and I could feel a pull, a tug dragging me toward it. The darkness reached out like a hand, pulling me into its depths. "No!" Dr. Porter shouted. "Get back!" But it was too late. I was already falling, swallowed by the darkness. The darkness swallowed me whole. I had no time to scream, no time to think. One moment I was standing at the altar, feeling the earth tremble beneath my feet, and the next I was falling, plunging into the void. The air around me felt cold and suffocating, pressing in on me from all sides, like 1,000 invisible hands trying to crush the life out of me. My heart raced in my chest, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I fell deeper and deeper into the abyss. The world around me was a blur, a swirling vortex of shadows and light, twisting and contorting like it was alive. I could feel something pulling at me, something dark and insidious, as though it were trying to drag me into its depths. My body felt weightless, as though I was floating, but I couldn't move. I couldn't control anything. And then I hit something solid. I gasped, my chest burning as I tumbled to the ground. The world around me was still dark, but there was a faint, sickly glow in the distance, a light that seemed to pulse and flicker like a dying flame. I tried to stand, but my legs were unsteady, my body disoriented from the fall. I stumbled forward, my eyes straining to focus on the strange light ahead of me. As I moved closer, I realized that it wasn't just a light, it was a figure. A person. Or what I thought was a person. The figure was hunched over, its back arched in an unnatural way. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, and its eyes, those same hollow, lifeless eyes, stared directly at me as though it could see right through me. I froze in place, my blood running cold. This was no ordinary person. This was one of them, the creatures, the vessels. And then it spoke. "You shouldn't be here," the creature said, its voice raspy, like something dragged from the depths of hell. "You've opened the door. Now there's no going back." I took a step back, my heart racing. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to stop this. Everything felt hopeless. I was trapped in this dark, twisted world with no way out. Before I could react, the creature moved toward me with unnatural speed, its arms outstretched like claws. It lunged, but I managed to sidestep just in time, feeling its cold, clammy fingers brush against my skin. I gasped, stumbling back again, my mind racing for a way to escape. "Help!" I shouted, my voice hoarse. "Somebody, please." But there was no response. No one was there to hear me. The creature let out a low, guttural laugh, its eyes gleaming with malice. "You are alone," it said, its voice dripping with venom. "There is no one to save you. The ritual is complete. And now you belong to us." I turned, desperately searching for any sign of escape. The swirling vortex was still there, but it was far off in the distance. I knew I had to get to it, had to find a way back to the surface, but the creature was blocking my path, moving toward me with terrifying speed. And then I heard a familiar voice. "Ethan, get away from it." I turned just in time to see Dr. Porter rushing toward me, his staff raised high. He shouted something I couldn't hear over the roaring wind, but it didn't matter. He reached the creature, and in an instant, the staff slammed into its chest. The creature let out a scream, high-pitched and unnatural, before collapsing to the ground. For a moment, the darkness around us seemed to retreat, as though the creature's presence had been the source of all the terror in this place. Dr. Porter grabbed my arm, pulling me toward him. "We have to move quickly. The ritual isn't over. It's just begun." I stumbled after him, my body still trembling with fear. We ran through the dark landscape, the shadows closing in around us. I didn't know where we were going, didn't know what to do, but Dr. Porter seemed to have a plan. I just hoped it would work. We reached a narrow passageway, a gap in the wall that led deeper into the darkness. I could hear the sounds of movement behind us. More creatures, more vessels. The air around us was thick with the energy of the ritual, the power that had been unleashed. Dr. Porter turned to face me, his eyes wide with fear. "We need to stop this. We need to destroy the source of the power. If we don't, the portal will open and they will come." "Who will come?" I asked, my voice shaking. "What are you talking about?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled me toward the passageway, his face grim. We moved quickly, but every step felt like we were walking deeper into the heart of the storm. The passage seemed endless, winding and twisting until finally we came to a door. It was a heavy, iron door with intricate symbols carved into its surface. Symbols I recognized from the object we had found earlier. The same symbols from the altar. "This is it," Dr. Porter said, his voice low. the door to the source of their power. We have to destroy it. He raised his staff, and with a single blow, the door cracked open. A surge of energy rushed out, and I staggered back, the force of it knocking me off my feet. The world around us seemed to warp, the walls of reality bending and twisting as though they were no longer solid. And then, in the center of the room, I saw it. A massive, swirling vortex of darkness, pulsing with a sickly, greenish light. It was the source of the power, the heart of the ritual, the thing that had brought James back. I could feel its pull, its presence, as though it were alive and watching us. The ground beneath me trembled, and I knew that if we didn't stop it, it would consume us all. "We have to destroy it," Dr. Porter said, his voice trembling. "Now." He raised his staff high, and with a single forceful strike, he brought it down on the vortex. The air was thick with the oppressive weight of the ritual. The swirling vortex before me pulsed with a sickly green light, its tendrils reaching out like the fingers of some ancient beast. I could feel the pull, the tug of it, as though it wanted to drag me into its depths. I could feel the darkness seeping into my skin, crawling beneath my bones, and for a moment I thought I might lose myself entirely. Dr. Porter stood beside me, his eyes fixed on the vortex, his face grim and focused. His hand was steady as he raised the staff, prepared to strike again. But I could see the fear in his eyes, the fear that we were running out of time, that this might be the final moment where we either succeeded or failed. The ground beneath us trembled again, and I felt a deep, guttural growl vibrating through the air. The creature from earlier, one of the vessels, was back. It was closer this time, its presence unmistakable. "No!" Dr. Porter shouted, his voice fierce. "Stay focused. We must destroy the source now before it's too late." But it was too late. The vortex was already growing stronger, its pull becoming more powerful with each passing second. I could feel my vision swimming, the edges of reality beginning to blur. The room seemed to shift, like the walls themselves were warping and bending. And then a loud, ear-splitting roar filled the air. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was James, my brother. His face was pale, his eyes hollow, like the creatures we had encountered before. But this was different. This was James, but not James. There was something wrong with him. Something empty. His body moved unnaturally, like a puppet being controlled by invisible strings. His gaze locked onto mine, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of recognition. But it was quickly replaced by something far darker. His mouth twisted into a twisted, malevolent grin. "I knew you'd come, James, or what was left of him," said, his voice a rasping, broken whisper. "You shouldn't have come here, Ethan. This place, it's not just a ritual. It's a doorway. And now you've opened it. You've brought them all back." My heart stopped. "James," I choked out. "What are you? What have they done to you?" The thing that was once my brother stepped forward, its movements jerky and disjointed. "They've brought me back. And now I belong to them. We all belong to them. The ritual is just the beginning. There's no escape from what you've unleashed." I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest. This wasn't my brother anymore. This was something else. Whatever they had done to him, it had twisted him beyond recognition. He was no longer human. Dr. Porter stepped forward, his staff raised high. "This is what they do," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "They turn the dead into vessels. They take control of their bodies, using them as tools for their own purposes. But it's not just about bringing them back. It's about control. The ritual allows them to pull the dead back through the doorway and use them to do their bidding." I felt sick to my stomach. "But James, he's just a puppet. He's not really alive." Dr. Porter nodded. "Yes, he's trapped in there somewhere. But it's not just him. It's everyone they've brought back. And if we don't stop this, they'll keep coming. They'll keep using the dead as vessels, opening the doorway wider and wider, until nothing is left but darkness." The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The creature, the ritual, the altar. It was all part of a plan to bring back the dead, to use them as pawns for something far greater. This wasn't just about my brother. It was about something much bigger. Something much more terrifying. "Ethan," Dr. Porter said, his voice urgent. "We have to destroy the source now. We have no time left. If we don't, everything will be lost." I nodded, my heart pounding. I didn't care how dangerous it was. I didn't care what it took. I had to stop this. I couldn't let my brother's death, or the deaths of so many others, be in vain. I turned to face the vortex, the energy swirling around it growing stronger with each passing second. The room around us seemed to shake with the power of it, the very air thick with dark energy. "Do it now," I shouted to Dr. Porter. He nodded, stepping forward. With a single powerful swing of his staff, he struck the center of the vortex. The ground trembled violently beneath our feet, and for a moment, the world seemed to freeze in place. Then the vortex exploded. A blinding light filled the room and I was thrown back, crashing into the ground. I couldn't see, couldn't hear anything. All I could feel was a searing pain, a burning heat that seemed to consume me from the inside out. My vision went black and I thought for a moment that this was it, that I was done. But then, as quickly as it had started, it was over. The light faded. The noise ceased. The darkness that had consumed the room was gone. I opened my eyes slowly, groggily, and found myself lying on the cold, stone floor of the ruins. Dr. Porter was kneeling beside me, his face pale and exhausted. "It's over," he said quietly. "We did it." I struggled to sit up, my head spinning. I looked around the room, but it was empty. The vortex was gone. The creatures, the dark energy, all of it was gone. The altar was shattered, the symbols no longer glowing. But there was still something wrong. I turned toward the altar, my heart sinking. There, on the stone floor, was the object we had found, the key. It was pulsing with an eerie light, as though it was waiting for something. And deep down, I knew it wasn't over. The ritual might have ended, but the darkness, it wasn't finished with us yet. The ruins were eerily silent now, the oppressive darkness that had filled the air slowly lifting. I stood, shakily, trying to regain my bearings. My body was bruised from the fall, my head throbbing from the explosion, but the worst of the pain seemed to be fading. Dr. Porter was standing beside me, his face drawn with exhaustion. He had been the one to strike the vortex, and I could see the toll it had taken on him. But despite the fact that we had seemingly won, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still terribly wrong. "The ritual is over," Dr. Porter said softly, as if to reassure himself as much as me. "We stopped them. The doorway has been closed." But I wasn't convinced. Something in my gut told me that this wasn't over. I glanced at the altar, the fragments of stone scattered around the room. The symbols were gone, but the object we had found, the key, still lay there, untouched. It pulsed faintly with that same eerie glow. It wasn't finished. It couldn't be. I stepped closer, but Dr. Porter reached out to stop me. "Don't touch it. Whatever that thing is, it's not just a key. It's something more." I nodded, my eyes never leaving the object. There was something deeply unsettling about it, as if it were alive, waiting for something. I could almost hear a whispering, distant but insistent, urging me to come closer. I shook my head, trying to push the thought away. "We need to leave," I said, my voice shaky. "I can't shake the feeling that we haven't seen the last of this place." Dr. Porter hesitated. "We can't leave yet. There's something we need to understand. This object, it's not just a key to the doorway. It's a conduit, a connection to something beyond this world." I turned to him, confusion and fear mixing in my chest. "What do you mean?" "We stopped the ritual. The vortex is gone." Dr. Porter's eyes were filled with an intensity that I hadn't seen before. "You don't understand. The ritual was just a part of something much larger. There's a reason they've been trying to bring the dead back. A reason they want to open the doorway. This place, it's not just a gateway to the dead. It's a bridge between worlds. And the key you found? It's the anchor. It's what holds everything together." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. "What are you saying? What's behind the door?" "I don't know," he admitted, his voice low. "But it's something ancient. Something that has been waiting. And now, with the ritual completed, it's only a matter of time before it begins to stir. The doorway might be closed, but the connection remains. And as long as that key is intact, the doorway is still there, waiting to be opened again." I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The air around us seemed to grow colder, and I had to fight the urge to run. The feeling of dread was overwhelming, suffocating. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Suddenly there was a sound, distant at first but growing louder. The ground trembled beneath our feet, and I could hear a low, rumbling growl. My breath caught in my throat as I turned to look toward the entrance to the ruins. The shadows had begun to shift again, moving in unnatural ways. Dr. Porter stepped forward, raising his staff once again. "It's not over," he said quietly, his face pale. "They found us. Whatever was behind the doorway, it's aware of what we did." The growling grew louder, and I saw a figure move in the distance, emerging from the shadows. It was tall, impossibly tall, its limbs too long and contorted in grotesque angles. Its eyes glowed with an unholy light, and its mouth opened wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth. I froze, my blood turning to ice. The creature, the thing from the ritual, was back. "No," I whispered. "It can't be." Dr. Porter stepped in front of me, holding his staff out as if to ward it off. "We need to destroy the key," he said, his voice urgent. "It's the only way to stop them." I nodded, but before we could make a move, the creature lunged, its mouth snapping shut with a sickening crack. Dr. Porter swung his staff, but the creature dodged it with inhuman speed, its claws slashing through the air. I watched in horror as Dr. Porter's staff was knocked from his hand, sending it crashing to the ground. "Run!" he shouted. "Get to the exit." I didn't need to be told twice. I grabbed Dr. Porter's arm and pulled him with me, racing through the ruins, the creature hot on our heels. The sound of its growls reverberated through the walls, its footsteps echoing in the confined space. We couldn't outrun it. We couldn't escape. We reached the exit, but just as we stepped into the clearing, the creature appeared in front of us, blocking the path. "Not this time," Dr. Porter said, his voice low and filled with resolve. He reached down and grabbed the object, the key, and held it up. The creature hissed, recoiling from the light that now emanated from the key. It was as though the key itself was fighting back, pushing the creature away, holding it at bay. "This is it," Dr. Porter said, his voice shaking with effort. "We can stop it now." With one final desperate move, Dr. Porter thrust the key into the ground, driving it deep into the earth. The ground beneath our feet trembled violently as Dr. Porter drove the key into the earth. The creature let out an ear-splitting screech, its body convulsing as though in pain, its eyes flickering with an unnatural light. But despite the creature's struggles, the key remained steadfast in the earth, as if it were rooted there, drawing power from the very depths of the ruins. For a brief moment, everything went still. The air around us was heavy, charged with an energy that felt ancient, primal. The creature staggered back, its body twitching as if it were trying to break free from some invisible force that held it in place. But the key, the source of the power, was holding it back. Dr. Porter stood there, panting heavily, his eyes fixed on the creature. "This is our chance," he said, his voice strained. "If we can destroy the key, we can close the door for good. The creature can't survive without it. It's the only way." I didn't need to be told twice. I stepped forward, my hands shaking as I reached for the key, but as soon as my fingers touched it, the ground beneath me shook again. The key pulsed with a violent energy, sending a shockwave through the air that sent me stumbling back. "No!" Dr. Porter shouted. "It's fighting us. Too powerful. We need something stronger." I glanced around desperately, my mind racing for an answer. We were trapped here, surrounded by darkness, with no way out. The creature was still alive, still hunting us, and every second that passed, it grew closer. Suddenly, I remembered the strange object we had found at the crash site, the one that seemed to resonate with the same energy as the key. My heart skipped a beat as I realized what we had to do. The object, it was the key's counterpart. Together they could destroy it. "Dr. Porter," I yelled. "The object, the one we found at the crash site. We need to use it." Dr. Porter's eyes widened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of hope in his gaze. "You're right. It's the only chance we have." I ran toward the remains of the altar, the object now resting on the stone surface. It was glowing faintly, the same strange energy that had filled the air earlier pulsing through it. I reached out and grabbed it, feeling its cold surface against my palm. It hummed with power, as though it were alive, its energy intertwining with the key. With the object in one hand and the key still lodged in the earth, I made my way back to Dr. Porter, who was watching the creature, which was now writhing in agony, unable to break free. "Do it," Dr. Porter urged, his voice filled with desperation. I took a deep breath and, with all the strength I could muster, I brought the object down onto the key. The moment they made contact, the earth beneath us shook violently, and the ground split open, a blinding light erupting from the fissure. The creature screamed, its body convulsing as though it were being torn apart from the inside out. Its glowing eyes flickered, and for a moment, I thought I saw a glimmer of recognition in them, a flash of the brother I had lost, the brother I had failed. But that brief moment was gone as quickly as it had appeared, and with a final, deafening roar, the creature disintegrated into nothingness. The light from the key and the object flared, filling the entire clearing with a bright, otherworldly glow. I felt a wave of heat and pressure as the air around us seemed to bend and distort. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, everything went quiet. I stood there, panting, my heart racing in my chest. The air felt lighter, freer, and the oppressive darkness that had hung over us seemed to dissipate. The creature was gone. The ritual was over. But even as I breathed a sigh of relief, I knew that the consequences of everything we had done were far from finished. Dr. Porter stood beside me, his face pale but relieved. "It's over for now," he said quietly. "But we've only scratched the surface. The power we unleashed, it's far greater than we can comprehend." I turned to face him, my mind spinning with everything that had happened. "What do we do now?" Dr. Porter looked down at the key, which was now shattered and lifeless. "We wait," he said softly. "We wait and hope that the door stays closed. But the truth is, the darkness we've uncovered will never truly go away. It's been here for centuries and it will find a way back, just as it has before." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. The idea that this was just the beginning, that there was more to uncover, more to fear, it made my stomach churn. But for now, at least we had one. The key was destroyed. The creature was gone. The doorway was closed. I looked back at the ruins, at the broken altar, the shattered stone, and the empty clearing. It was quiet now, too quiet. The darkness had receded, but I knew it wouldn't be long before it returned. "I won't let it come back," I said quietly, more to myself than to Dr. Porter. He nodded. "None of us can truly stop it, but we can fight. And that's what we'll do. We'll keep fighting." And with that, we turned and left the ruins, walking away from the place that had almost destroyed us. But the darkness had not been vanquished. It had merely been held at bay. For how long we didn't know, but we would be ready. The night had fallen completely, draping the world in an eerie silence. The ruins that once trembled with energy now stood still, almost peaceful in their desolation. I looked back one last time at the place where everything had begun, the place that had nearly consumed me, nearly destroyed everything I held dear. The key had been destroyed. The creature had been vanquished. The door had been closed. But something inside me, the very core of my being, told me that this wasn't the end. It couldn't be. The air felt too thick, as if something unseen was lurking, waiting to reveal itself. Dr. Porter and I walked through the clearing, the weight of the night pressing down on our shoulders. My body was exhausted, every inch of me sore and battered from the chaos we just endured. Yet there was a strange clarity in my mind. We'd won, for now. But the future was still uncertain. I glanced at Dr. Porter. His face was drawn, as if the events of the past days had drained him more than I had realized. "You're right," I said, my voice low, my thoughts still heavy with the aftermath. "The battle is over, but not the war." Dr. Porter turned to look at me, his expression somber. "Exactly. This is only the beginning. The key may be destroyed, but the energy it released, it's still out there. The ritual might have been stopped, but the doorway to the other side, the connection to the darkness, that's still very much a part of this world." I stopped walking, my breath catching in my throat. "So what now?" "We just wait for it to come back." Dr. Porter nodded grimly. "We've closed one door, but there are many others. The ritual was only the first step in a much larger, far-reaching plan. We've dealt with the immediate danger, but the forces behind all of this are still out there, somewhere waiting." The air seemed to grow colder as the night deepened. I felt a shiver run down my spine, not from the chill of the night, but from the weight of Dr. Porter's words. The things we had unleashed weren't just tied to this place, to this moment, they were tied to something much older, something far darker. And they had a plan, one that went beyond our understanding. "We can't keep running," I said, determination hardening in my chest. "We need to end this once and for all." Dr. Porter's eyes narrowed. "You're right. But there's more you don't know. This isn't just about stopping them from coming back. It's about finding out where they came from, who is behind this, and why they're using the dead to carry out their plans. If we can understand that, we might stand a chance." We walked in silence for a few moments, the weight of his words settling in. There were so many questions still left unanswered, so many pieces of the puzzle that didn't fit. And the truth was, no matter how much we fought, no matter how much we tried to stop it, the darkness would always find a way to return. We reached the edge of the forest, the moonlight casting long shadows over the ground. It was there, in the distance, that I saw the faintest flicker of movement. My heart skipped a beat. "Did you see that?" I asked, my voice tense. Dr. Porter's eyes immediately darted to the spot I was pointing at. "Stay alert," he murmured. We moved slowly, cautiously, toward the flicker of movement. The trees seemed to close in around us, the shadows stretching and twisting unnaturally as we walked deeper into the forest. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that eyes were following our every move, hidden just beyond our line of sight. The closer we got, the more the air seemed to grow heavy, thick with an unnatural energy. The forest felt alive, but not in a way that was comforting. The ground beneath our feet seemed to tremble as if something deep below was stirring, awakening from a long slumber. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was a person. No, not a person. Not fully human. It was someone I recognized, but not. It was my brother, James. But this James was different. His eyes were empty, hollow. His skin was pale and stretched tight against his bones. He was moving unnaturally, as though his body were being controlled by some unseen force. He opened his mouth to speak, but all that came out was a low, guttural growl. "No," I whispered, my heart sinking. "James?" Dr. Porter stepped forward, his staff raised. "It's not him anymore. It's just another vessel. Another one of them." The figure, my brother or whatever had replaced him, reached toward me, his fingers elongated and twisted. A strange, low hum filled the air as the creature's fingers brushed against my skin. The cold that radiated from it was unbearable, a bitter, soul-chilling cold that made my whole body freeze in place. "We need to get out of here," Dr. Porter said urgently. "Now." But it was too late. The figure lunged. The air around me was thick with the unnatural hum of the creature's presence. Its hollow eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that felt suffocating, as if it could peer straight into my soul. It wasn't James. No, it was something far worse. Something that wore his skin but was no longer the brother I had known. I stumbled backward, my body frozen in place, unable to move as the creature's twisted fingers reached out toward me. The world seemed to slow as I realized just how far we had come, and how deep we were now entangled in the darkness that had been unleashed. Dr. Porter moved quickly, his staff raised high as he struck the creature in the chest. But the blow seemed to have no effect. The creature's hollow gaze never left me, and it moved toward me with unnatural speed, its limbs jerking and twisting as if it were struggling to maintain control. "Ethan, move!" Dr. Porter shouted, his voice urgent. I didn't need any more encouragement. I turned and ran, my legs carrying me forward on instinct, desperate to get away from the creature that was now pursuing me. The forest was a blur around me as I ran. The trees seemed to close in, the shadows shifting unnaturally as if they were alive, reaching out to grab me. My breath came in ragged gasps, my heart pounding in my chest. I could feel the creature's presence behind me, the air growing colder as it drew closer. I glanced over my shoulder, and for a moment, I saw the creature's face, twisted in a grotesque mockery of James' features. Its eyes, those empty hollow eyes, were fixed on me, and I could hear its footsteps echoing behind me. It was getting closer. I reached for my gun, but my hands were shaking so badly that I could barely grip it. The creature was almost upon me. I could feel its cold breath on the back of my neck, hear its jagged breaths as it grew closer. But then, just as the creature was about to strike, Dr. Porter appeared out of nowhere, swinging his staff with all his might. The creature howled in pain as the staff struck its side, sending it stumbling back. "Go!" Dr. Porter yelled, his voice frantic. "I'll hold it off. You need to get to the ritual site." I hesitated for a moment, but there was no time to waste. The creature was recovering, its eyes once again fixed on me. I had no choice but to keep moving. I turned and ran, my feet pounding against the dirt as I raced toward the clearing, the ritual site now in the distance. I could hear the creature behind me, its footsteps getting closer and closer. But I didn't dare look back. I couldn't afford to lose focus. I had to reach the altar. I had to stop this. As I neared the ritual site, I could see the altar, the broken fragments of stone scattered across the ground. The symbols that had once glowed with dark energy were now faded, but the aura of the place still felt heavy. The air was thick with the remnants of the ritual, the energy still pulsing faintly in the atmosphere. I had no idea what I was supposed to do, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let the creature reach the altar. I had to stop it no matter what. I ran up to the altar, looking around frantically for anything that could help. The key, the object that had caused all of this, was still lying on the ground, shattered and lifeless. But there had to be something. Some way to end it. Suddenly, I remembered Dr. Porter's words. The ritual was only the beginning. There was more to this than we had realized. And the object we had found at the crash site, its counterpart, might hold the answer. Without thinking, I grabbed the object and raised it high. The moment it left the ground, the air around me seemed to shift. The energy in the atmosphere changed, growing more intense, more focused. The creature was close now. I could feel it, could hear its growls growing louder as it neared the altar. It was too late to run. There was only one option left. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, and then I slammed the object into the altar with all my strength. The ground shook violently, and the air was filled with a blinding light. The ritual site seemed to crack and splinter, the very earth beneath my feet trembling as if it were being torn apart. A deafening roar filled the air, and I fell to my knees, covering my ears in a desperate attempt to block out the sound. For a moment, everything went still. And then just as quickly the light dissipated and everything went silent. I opened my eyes slowly, and for the first time since all of this began, I felt a sense of relief. The creature was gone. The altar was destroyed. The ritual had ended. But the victory was short-lived. I stood, my body trembling from the shock, and turned to see Dr. Porter standing at the edge of the clearing. His face was pale, and his eyes were filled with a mixture of relief and fear. "It's not over," he said quietly. "We've stopped them for now, but there's more. There's always more." I looked around, feeling the weight of his words settle in my chest. The forest was still, too still, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. "What do we do now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Porter looked out into the dark forest, his expression grave. "We wait. We prepare. And we hope that when the darkness comes again, we'll be ready." The forest was unnervingly quiet, the kind of silence that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Every step I took seemed to echo, as though the woods were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. I could feel Dr. Porter at my side, his presence steady but no less heavy with the weight of everything we'd been through. The ritual site was now completely destroyed, the altar in ruins, the key shattered. The creature was gone, disintegrated into nothingness. For a moment it seemed like we had won. But that victory felt hollow, as if there was something still lingering just beyond our grasp. "We've stopped them," I said, my voice low. "We destroyed the altar. The creature is gone. The ritual is over." Dr. Porter didn't respond immediately. His eyes scanned the forest, wary and calculating. He was deep in thought, clearly not as convinced as I was that we had truly ended it. And something told me he was right. "We've stopped them, for now," he said, his voice grim. "But the doorway remains. The darkness, it's still there. We've only put a temporary seal on it." I stopped walking, my breath catching in my throat. "The doorway?" I asked. "You mean the one that leads to them?" He nodded slowly, his face hard with resolve. "Yes. The ritual was just one part of their plan. The key, the altar, it was all designed to open a doorway to their world. But even though we've destroyed the physical objects, the doorway itself is still open, just not in the way we expect. The energy, the power, it lingers. And as long as that connection exists, the darkness can still find a way back." I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't over. The battle we'd fought was only a small piece of a much larger puzzle. The forces that had been unleashed were still lurking, waiting for the right moment to strike. "We need to destroy the doorway completely," I said, my voice shaking with urgency. "We can't let it stay open even if it's just a crack." Dr. Porter met my gaze, his eyes filled with a quiet sadness. "I wish it were that simple," he said. "But the doorway isn't something we can just close. It's not a physical object. It's a connection. A rift between worlds. The only way to truly close it is to sever that connection. And for that, we need something more than just force." I frowned, confusion flooding my mind. "What do you mean? What else could we possibly need?" He hesitated for a moment before speaking. "There's one place, the source of all this, the place where the ritual was originally conceived, the place where the power began. That's where the final seal is. If we can get there, we can destroy the source of the darkness and sever the connection for good." My mind raced as I tried to piece it all together. We had been chasing shadows, dealing with the aftermath of a ritual that we didn't fully understand. The creature, the ritual, the altar, it had all been part of a much larger plan, one that had been set in motion long before we ever stumbled into this nightmare. Dr. Porter stepped forward, his hand resting gently on my shoulder. "Ethan, we've come this far. But the last step, it's going to be the hardest. The place where the source lies is beyond anything you've ever seen. It's not just a physical location. It's a place of power. A place that can warp reality itself." The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. We weren't just fighting creatures. We weren't just stopping a ritual. We were up against something much more dangerous. A force that could bend the very fabric of reality. A force that had been waiting for centuries to break free. "We're going," I said, my voice steady now, even though fear gnawed at the edges of my thoughts. "We're going to destroy this thing. Once and for all." Dr. Porter nodded, but there was no smile, no relief in his expression. Only the same grim determination that had driven him since the beginning. We turned and walked deeper into the forest, toward the unknown. Every step felt like it could be our last. The trees seemed to grow taller, the shadows darker, as if the forest itself was trying to push us back. But we couldn't stop. We couldn't turn around. The darkness was waiting and we had to finish what we had started. The further we went, the stranger the forest became. The air was thick with an almost tangible energy, and the trees themselves seemed to bend and twist unnaturally, as though they were alive and watching us. The further we walked, the more I could feel the weight of what we were about to face. And then we reached it. At first, it looked like nothing more than a clearing, a simple, open space in the forest. But as we stepped closer, I saw it, the faint outline of a structure hidden among the trees. It was ancient, weathered by time, yet undeniably powerful. It was as though it had been there for millennia, waiting. "This is it," Dr. Porter said quietly. "The source." I stepped forward, my heart pounding. The place was silent, deathly quiet. But there was something in the air. Something wrong. The energy here was different. Darker. Heavier. The moment I stepped inside the clearing, I felt it. The rift, the doorway, it was here in the very heart of this ancient place. The structure itself was a large stone altar, much like the one we had destroyed earlier, but this one was different. The symbols etched into the stone pulsed with dark energy, and at the center of the altar, I could see a faint glow, something ancient and alive. "This is where it all began," Dr. Porter whispered, his voice reverent. I stepped forward, but before I could reach the altar, a voice echoed in the clearing, low and menacing. "You should not have come here." I turned, my heart stopping in my chest. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was tall, cloaked in darkness, its face obscured by a hood. But even in the shadows, I could feel the malevolent presence radiating from it. "We've been waiting for you," the figure said, its voice like a hiss. "Now you will join us." The figure standing before us was like no other. Cloaked in darkness, its presence was suffocating, its voice carrying a cold, venomous power that seemed to reverberate through the very ground we stood on. My heart raced, each beat heavy with the weight of everything that had led us here. I had been prepared for the darkness, but nothing could have prepared me for this. "We've been waiting for you," the figure said again, its voice sending a shiver down my spine. "You and the doctor, so eager to close the door. But what you fail to realize is that the door was never meant to be closed." I felt Dr. Porter tense beside me. He stepped forward, his staff raised. "Who are you?" His voice was steady, though I could hear the underlying tremor of fear that he tried to mask. The figure slowly lifted its hood, revealing its face, or what was left of it. Its skin was pale, stretched tight over a skull-like structure, its eyes black and empty, as if the very essence of life had been drained from it. Its smile was wide, jagged, and human. "I am the Keeper, the one who guards the rift. And you, my dear friends, are about to become part of the very thing you tried to destroy." I could feel the weight of its words press down on me, but I refused to show fear. We had come this far. There was no turning back. "What is this place?" I demanded. "What have you done? What is the ritual for?" The Keeper's laugh echoed through the clearing, low and sinister. "The ritual? Oh, the ritual was merely a means to an end, a key to unlocking the full potential of the rift. The doorway was never meant to remain closed. It is a connection between worlds, a bridge between this one and the next. And you, Ethan, and Dr. Porter, have unknowingly aided us in opening it." I glanced at Dr. Porter, his face pale, eyes wide with realization. "You knew," I whispered. "You knew all along." Dr. Porter didn't answer immediately. He stepped forward, his expression grim, almost resigned. "I suspected," he said quietly. "But I never thought it would go this far." I turned back to the Keeper. "What do you want from us?" The Keeper's smile widened. "You are the final piece. The doorway requires a sacrifice, a life, a soul. Only then can the rift fully open, and the darkness can flow into this world." A cold wave of dread washed over me. I understood now. We weren't just dealing with creatures, with entities from the other side. This was something far greater. This was the beginning of an invasion of darkness that would consume everything. "No," I whispered, stepping backward, my hand instinctively gripping the object we had found. It hummed with energy, its power pulsing in my palm. "You won't get what you want." The Keeper tilted its head, amused. "You think you can stop this? You think you can close the door that was meant to be opened? The rift is already here. The darkness is already flowing. There is no stopping it." But there was a flicker of doubt in its voice, and for a split second, I saw a glimmer of vulnerability. The rift was a power that could not be controlled, not even by the Keeper. "Dr. Porter," I said, my voice steady now, "we need to use the object. We need to sever the connection, cut the link to the rift." Dr. Porter didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, his staff glowing with a faint, otherworldly light. I can't do it alone. We need to combine our powers, Ethan. Only together can we break the connection. I nodded, my grip tightening on the object. We didn't have much time. The Keeper's presence was growing stronger, its power seeping into the ground beneath us, twisting the air around us. If we didn't act now, it would be too late. Together we raised our hands, the object pulsing in the center. The energy surrounding us surged, crackling with a raw, uncontrollable force. The Keeper's eyes widened as it realized what we were about to do. No, the Keeper screamed. You can't. But it was too late. With a final surge of energy, we thrust the object into the ground, and the earth shook violently. The rift, the doorway between worlds, began to collapse. The darkness that had been seeping into our world retreated, sucked back into the void from which it had come. The Keeper let out a deafening scream, its form distorting and unraveling as the energy overwhelmed it. The world seemed to tremble as the rift closed, the very fabric of reality shuddering with the force of the seal being restored. For a moment, everything went still. The air was heavy with the aftermath, the silence deafening. And then, just as quickly, the pressure lifted. The darkness was gone. I looked at Dr. Porter, my chest heaving with exhaustion. We did it, I said, my voice hoarse. Dr. Porter nodded, his face pale but resolute. For now. But remember, Ethan, the darkness will always be waiting. It's never truly gone. And we will always have to be ready. I glanced around at the ruined clearing, the shattered altar, the remnants of the ritual. It was over, but I knew, deep down, that this was just one battle in a much longer war. We turned and walked away from the clearing, the forest quiet behind us, but the shadow of what we had faced would linger forever. There would be no forgetting what had been unleashed. And there would be no peace until we had found a way to truly sever the connection, once and for all.